Hi, I'm Karen and this is Whitney, and today we are testing two separate tracks for the sensory system. One particular track that we're going to test for is for her wrist for kinesthesia, so where her body is when it's moving. And that particular receptor is your Pacini's receptor, and that is testing through your medial myelated receptors. And the other which is your dorsal column medial lemniscus tract. And the other thing that we're testing for is for her L4 dermatome, which is your anterior lateral spinal thalamic tract. And those are your pain receptors for your sharp jaw, so your nociceptors, which are your C fibers. So the first thing that we're going to look at is Whitney's wrist. And what we're going to do for that is first go over the tracking for the dorsal column medial lemniscus. So these all start at the dorsal root ganglia, and that is where your first order neuron goes in and goes into the spinal cord and meets up with the second order neuron, which is your nucleus cuneate. I may be saying that wrong because it's her arm, her wrist that we're testing. After it meets with the second order neuron, it continues up and goes to the dorsal part of the medulla and meets with a third order neuron, which is your articulate fibers, your internal articulate fibers. And they're called articulate fibers because they actually arc, and actually here's where your desiccation happens, and they cross over at the dorsal medulla before they continue up into the thalamus, and then eventually end up at the posterior portion, the ventral posterior lateral portion of the thalamus, right in the parietal area of the premotor cortex. So this particular track, if you have a lesion and it is at the spinal cord region, you will still have ipsilateral signs and symptoms of your kinesthesia. If it crosses over into your brainstem, you will then have contralateral symptoms because this is where the desiccation happens. So to test her wrist, if we were testing her for her affected side being her left, her right is her unaffected, I'm going to just demonstrate. This is going to be up, this is moving down. So you're going to tell me if you're all the way up, halfway up, all the way down, halfway down. So if you can do that now.
All the way up, halfway up, halfway down.
So as we're moving the patient, if she can, without being cued, tell me where I'm moving her positioning. So I'm going to have you close your eyes, and we're going to do the same thing.
All the way up, midline, halfway down, halfway down, midline, halfway up.
I think you're good. Okay, thank you. So the next track that we're going to test is the anterior lateral spinal thalamic tract. Okay, and this is testing for pain, for sharp and dull, testing for her L4 dermatome. Okay, for the L4 dermatome, I'm going to have you stand up and show you running the test. So L4 running across here, going more lateral, running around the anterior portion of her leg, running more medial until it drops all the way down to the calf region. Go and have a seat. To the calf region, and then goes around to the ventral portion of the foot and the first rib. For this particular track, again, we start at the dorsal root ganglia, and it enters into the spinal column, into the dorsal horn, and it instantly crosses over. So this desiccation is right here at the spinal cord before it goes through everything and meets up at the thalamus, and stays here until we hit again, the ventral posterior lateral portion of the thalamus, and continues on for the cortex area. Because this crossing is at the spinal cord, anywhere where you have a lesion at the spinal cord level below the lesion, it will then have a contralateral effect of the symptoms of sharp and dull, hot and cold, and other symptoms that this tract carries. Same with the brain as well. Okay. So to test that, you can use a pinprick or anything sharp. I'm just going to use the end of this, do her unaffected side first, hit her through her L4, and that's going to be sharp. Are you feeling that?
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be dull. Testing her unaffected side first, have her close her eyes.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
And not just doing her L4 symptoms, but also doing this L4 dermatomes, but also doing her dermatomes above and below L4 to see if we can tell the difference, if it's a dermatome or not. The dermatomes are tested to distinguish the tract and also to distinguish if it is a peripheral nerve lesion, which would have a smaller, more specific area of deficits versus a larger dermatomal, larger area of deficits. And there you go.